Today, I talked to Gordon Hayward about the Cooper Flagg injury and what Duke NBA draft prospects could actually benefit from his absence and help their own draft stock. And then later, we talked about some Big East draft prospects to watch. So the big news on Thursday is a Cooper Flagg injury happened. He played 15 minutes for Duke, turned his left ankle, helped off the floor, was wheeled off for x-rays, and fortunately, he was back on the bench in the second half, walking under his own power, did not have a walking boot on. Scary situation, though, for Duke, though, Gordon, to see him go down. And I would expect with an ankle sprain of that severity, he'll probably miss the remaining of the conference tournament for Duke and maybe even the first round of the NCAA tournament. What's your initial reaction to the Cooper Flagg injury?
Yeah, it's tough to watch anybody go through an injury like that, especially ankle injuries. That's obviously something that I had a little ankle injury of my own. It's not fun to deal with. It's when something like that happens, it's really scary because when you can't put weight on your foot or anything, you don't know how it's going to turn out. Hopefully he like you said, hopefully he'll be okay. I think for Duke, it's not a one person has to step up and try to fill his shoes. His shoes are too big for that. He does so much for that team. I think it's going to have to be everyone steps up. A little bit here, a little bit there, to try to replace some of his production. I mean, that's what's been so impressive to me about him being so young and his motor. And it's not like he can just score. He does a little bit of everything. And more than anything, he helps them win, which is something that's really, I think, hard for young people to do, is lead teams to victory and not just stats. But hopefully he'll be back for the tournament. But if he's not, it's going to have to be everybody step up as a cast.
You mentioned you know all about those, obviously. You went through it to the worst degree, and hopefully for Cooper, he's able to get back this month, play for Duke in the NCAA tournament. We'll see if he's able to do that. But ultimately, though, however long he's out, you're right. This is going to have to be a by-committee thing for Duke in order to continue advancing to a point when Cooper Flagg is able to return and maybe even be able to be effective. So I'm interested in seeing how other guys step up here. Kon Knueppel, number one, really, in my eyes, from the guy who can help himself from an NBA draft perspective, and also is going to be as important for Duke in terms of advancing. He had 28 points on 7-14 from the floor, 12-13 from the line. He had also had 8 assists and 1 turnover in this game without Cooper Flagg. 3 lobs to Malawach, ran a season-high 14 pick and rolls in the game, according to Synergy. Kon Knueppel looked excellent without Flagg out there eating up a lot of touches. I thought he was tremendous in the game.
Yeah, I mean, so when somebody goes down, there are opportunities for other players. That's just the reality of how it works. There's only one basketball, and when Cooper's in the game, he's going to have the ball in his hands, especially in crunch time and when the game's on the line. So certainly gives Kon a chance to show his stuff. And if he can produce like he did today, I think he'll really definitely up his stock, and the Duke Blue Devils will be really happy if he can do that.
Is it lazy to compare Kon Knueppel to Gordon Hayward?
It might be a little lazy because 2 white guys. For me personally, I was always only compared to white players, and I always felt like that was a terrible comparison because I was more of a scorer, not a shooter. But because I was white, everyone wants to say, "Oh, he's a shooter," and so they compared me to other white shooters in the NBA. But I was way more of a slasher, especially at the beginning of my career. I think I was only like 30-some% from 3 at Butler. So it could be a little bit of a lazy comparison, but he's a great player. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in his future.
For what it's worth, my Kon Knueppel comparisons that are going to be coming out in my draft guide: Kam Johnson and Bojan Bogdanovic. We'll see, though, because the pick and roll, that's where Cooper Flagg eats up so many touches in so many different areas. They just ran pick and roll over and over and over again with him and Malawach, hit him for 3 lobs. And Malawach is really that second guy who I think is going to be able to benefit, or hopefully benefit, for Duke this year. Towering rim protector, 7-footer, 8 points per game in about 20 minutes per game this season, shooting 68% from the field. Without Flagg on defense, there's going to be even more on the plate of Malawach. How would you describe his game and his importance to Duke and what he could be in the NBA?
Yeah, extremely important to be able to have a guy to protect the rim mean, you can funnel your whole defense. You can funnel them right to a guy like that, and if he can protect the rim, it changes your defense. I played with somebody in Utah who was obviously really good at protecting the rim, and Rudy Gobert. And when he was on the court, it allows you on the perimeter to feel like you can be up in people's shorts a little bit more. You can take a couple more chances because you know if you get beat, you're sending them right there to Rudy. And so if he can be somewhat similar where he's big, long, vertical at the rim, not bailing guys out, making things difficult, your defense just jumps to a whole nother level.
Now, I've always been, in sports media, like a Rudy Gobert guy. Like there's been a lot of skeptics of his game in the playoffs. I think Gobert is a sensational talent. In the playoffs, obviously, everything changes in the NBA. Sometimes he's been pulled out to the perimeter. His offensive limitations have been exposed at times. With Malawach in college basketball, do you see the way, obviously the three-point shot is incredibly important in college as it is in the NBA. Do you think there's similar challenges for some of those interior bigs in college basketball as there are in the NBA that Malawach and guys like that will have to face?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nature of the game, there's a lot of the skill's never been higher. Shooting's never been better. Guys are shooting it further out. And so if you start doing this thing where we're going to switch and we're going to start finding where's Waldo, find the Mickey, find the matchup that we want and go at them, if that starts being the case, then, he's going to have to prove I can guard people on the perimeter or at least force them into tough shots. Me personally, I'm okay with giving up contested step back jumpers, as long as they're only getting one shot with my big out there on the perimeter, if we can still get the rebound. But that's something that teams are going to have to figure out. Guys like him are going to have to figure out. If you're out there and you're getting blown by and now they're getting wide open layups or wide open corner threes or kick out threes, now that's a real problem. And I think sometimes that was some of the criticism with Rudy is they're just spreading the court on him and, he's not able to defend 5 out type of stuff. But certainly it's something that teams and players like that got to keep an eye on.
Isn't it ultimately, though? I mean, like in the case of Rudy, defense is about 5 guys. It's not like it could all blame could be on any individual player ever.
No doubt. There's definitely truth to that. And that's why we're expecting him to be at the rim when we get beat. You're saying if it's a one-on-one game, it's a completely different game. That being said, the thing I think about step back shots and when guys switch and now all of a sudden it's like the world is watching you versus whoever you're switched on to, and it's a loud bucket. It's a really loud bucket. It's not, so if somebody hits a step back shot, it's like, oh, Rudy can't guard him. And for me, I hate that. I think, like I said, I'm fine giving up contested jump shots. It's kind of a defensive philosophy thing. And to your point, it's 5-on-5. We're not going to it's not just one-on-one. It's not Rudy versus whoever. So sometimes you got to make an adjustment and funnel guys. Okay, I know that, he's a little bit quicker than me. I might get beat, but I'm only going to get beat baseline or I'm only going to get beat middle because that's where my help's at. And so that's a coaching thing. That's a philosophy thing.
I mean, so for Duke, Malawach, Kon Knueppel, Isaiah Evans, Tyrese Proctor, their guards, spark plug off the bench. Isaiah Evans had 14 points in their game on Thursday. Proctor, not a great game as a starter, but he's been a lot better this season. So we'll see. We don't have news yet on how long Flagg will be out, but they're going to need a team effort in order to continue advancing. St. John's advanced to the semifinal in the Big East tournament. They beat your Butler Bulldogs. I'm sorry, Gordon. It's probably the worst thing that happened to you today.
They did. But if they're going to get beat by somebody, St. John's looks really tough. So now you can start to root for St. John's a little bit.
With RJ Lewis, he 20 points, 7 boards in the day. Do you see NBA potential in him?
Yeah, I was at the game today at MSG, and it was, I looked up and all of a sudden he had like 16 points, and it was a very quiet, easy 16 points. He didn't force anything. He kind of let the game come to him. He had some tough buckets, but a lot of it was just, like I said, letting the game come to him. And I can appreciate that in a player, not just trying to press and force for buckets or force for points. And so he's got size, he can shoot. He can defend. All of those guys can defend. And I think if you have those qualities, then certainly NBA GMs are taking a look at you.
All right, I want to talk about 3 Big East prospects with you for people to watch this month, starting with Friday, Kam Jones of Marquette facing off against St. John's. Kam Jones came back to school this year after Tyler Kolek went to the NBA. Last year got drafted by the Knicks. A lot more pick and roll for Kam Jones this season. His 3-point percentage dropped. What's your overall assessment of Kam Jones's game, and how do you see him translating to the next level?
Yeah, I liked him today. I got a chance to watch a little bit of Marquette versus Xavier. It seems like he was more of a distributor role this year with Kolek gone. I think last year probably more off the ball. But he if he can get to the rim and really set up his outside jump shot by being able to get to the rim, that's when I think he takes another step and goes to another level. Being able to be a dual threat guy and not just focusing on either thing. Either if it's only I can only get to the rim or I can only shoot threes. Being able to do a little bit of both is really what makes you so dangerous. And then I like that this year he was able to pass the rock to and get other guys open. And so definitely liked what I saw from him today watching.
I mean, ultimately, even though his 3-point shot was not nearly as good this season, I still feel like he helped himself from a draft stock perspective, because the playmaking was the big thing. Like, he showed little flashes last year in the games. Kolek missed a stretch of games, and Kam Jones looked pretty good as a distributor in those games. But being able to do it for a full season, he looks more like he could be like a DiVincenzo type rather than just like basic spot up shooter, that type of guy. So I'd say he helped himself this season. So that it's beneficial to go back to school for some of these guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And this goes back to what we were just talking about earlier. Sometimes there's only one basketball on the court. And if you have somebody that's really good, and like Kolek was at running the show, it didn't give him Kam Jones a chance to show what he can do from a playmaking perspective. So, Shaka must have leaned on him more this year and said, hey, I'm going to need you to distribute a little bit more and get other guys open. And so showing that he can do that certainly helps your stock.
For sure. And let's talk about another upperclassman in his 5th year, actually, Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton, 7'1", 270 pounds. We're recording this before Creighton's Thursday night game, but entering it, Kalkbrenner has scored 25, 23, 20, and 27 points in his last 4 games, averaging 19.4 in the season. Came back for his 5th season and looks like borderline first-round pick. How would you describe Kalkbrenner's game, Gordon?
Yeah, I mean, he's a problem certainly there in the post. He can pass it a little bit too. You want to talking about Rudy Gobert. I think I saw something. He won Defensive Player of the Year 4 years in a row in the Big East. Is that correct?
I believe so.
That is a crazy stat. So talking about grabbing up rebounds, protecting the rim, he can do that. And that's rarefied air. I think was it Ewing? Was he the only other one that did that?
It's crazy.
That's rarefied air. So, and with his ability with the touch that he has, if he's putting up numbers like 20 balls like that, 7 games in a row, certainly Creighton is a dangerous team heading into this postseason here. I don't think you would want to see them with him and Ashworth, both guys that have been around and have done it and have experience. So, they're going to be a tough out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Kalkbrenner, like defensively, no doubts about him. 7'5" wingspan, great shot blocker, smart defender and all that. I'm intrigued by some of these bigs, like this year in the NBA, Quentin Post from Boston College going in the 2nd round to the Warriors has been one of the steals of the draft. Like this archetype of 7-footers who show some touch from 3 and also a bit of feel and can at least provide size around the rim. Like, I think Kalkbrenner is one of those types of guys where even though he's around 30% from 3, he's got solid touch near the rim. He's 70-ish% from the free throw line. Like, just bringing these guys into your system, like every team needs bigs. And whether it's Quentin Post last year, who, a lot of people didn't even know about, or Kalkbrenner this year, who's in his 5th year and is kind of a bigger name going into the tournament, these guys are important in the NBA nowadays. Like, size does matter.
Well, size when you can guard the rim matters 1,000%. I think that's what NBA teams are looking for. And also they're looking for size that can spread the court. I mean, I've always said, to me, one of the most valuable players on Milwaukee's team was Brook Lopez. And certainly on the defensive end, Giannis got all the accolades, and there's no doubt Giannis is the one that made him go. But But Brook is the one that just anchored their entire defense and was unreal he's still good now, but for a period of time there, he was one of the best bigs, if not the best big at being around the rim and spreading it out on the perimeter, giving everybody so much space on the offensive end. So if Kalkbrenner can if he's that type of an archetype and mold where he can spread it to three and he's protecting the rim, that's someone you want on your team.
I mean, even Zach Edey started shooting threes this year. He barely shot at all for Purdue last year. And
I haven't seen that. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, he's shooting like 1 or 2 per game. It's not like a high volume, but at least having that as a tool. Isn't it crazy, though, how, you mentioned Brook Lopez. He's this low-post beast for the Brooklyn Nets for years, and then he becomes a good three-point shooter.
An all-star for them, right?
All-star, yes. And then Al Horford, who you played with. Horford, an interior guy for years with the Hawks who could hit a mid-range jumper, and now he could play till he's 40 if he wants to, in part because he put in the time to develop the three-point shot. And like all these bigs coming up now, I feel like so many of them try to shoot threes. Some of them show the ability, others don't, but it is a necessity almost at this point for bigs to at least show the potential of that.
No doubt. But what I think young bigs have to understand, though, is first and foremost, you got to be able to protect the rim. That's I think the thing that will get you on the court. And both those guys, Edey, Brook Lopez, they're monsters around the rim. I mean, you're not getting an easy bucket around the rim.
Last guy I want to ask you about is Liam McNeeley, freshman at UConn, 6'7", 210, averaging 14.7 points per game on 34.7% from three. What is your assessment of McNeeley's game, Gordon?
Well, we've got this whole white American shooter comparison again to go on.
He's probably a better comp to you than Kon Knueppel is, I think.
Right. Well, I wish I would have had a chance to see him play over at MSG, see him live. I haven't caught him live. I've just seen some highlights. But what's impressive to me, he's a freshman too. Is that right?
Yes.
What's impressive to me is after going over to MSG and watching some of these college games, how we talked about Kalkbrenner. I mean, this is a you have fifth and sixth year seniors here that these kids as a freshman are playing against, and they look like they've been eating weights in the weight room for the last 4 years. I mean, they're huge. They're way bigger than some of the young cats that I was playing with towards the end of my NBA career. And so it's tough out there. You think you're driving to the hole, and these guys chest you up. I mean, you can't. If you're a freshman, you have to be really good to be doing it to these guys in this league. And so that's what's impressive about McNeeley. Somebody like McNeeley is his ability to play against some of these guys that are, 5-6 years older than him and have been in these college systems for a while. So it certainly is impressive to me.
So Gordon, clearly you decorate your home with mouthwash and toothpaste from Colgate with what's behind you right now. What's the deal with this with Colgate?
Yeah, so I had a chance to partner with them for the Big East tournament, which I'm really thankful about, getting a chance to go and watch my dogs play, but also talking about some oral health and oral hygiene. One of the big things I'm telling people is to be dentist ready. And nobody wants to go to the dentist stressing about whether or not you have cavities or not. And so Colgate Total has released this new program. There's a mouthwash, toothpaste, toothbrush, and if you use all three, it's going to help prevent, I think it's like 15 times more preventative for oral health problems if you use this system every day. And that speaks to me because I've got kids. It's a nightmare to try to get these kids to try and brush their teeth in the morning and at night. But it's like a monkey see, monkey do. If I'm doing it, I'm using the system, then they'll stand next to me and they'll get the job done too. So it's been fun getting a chance to watch the games, talk to people about, their oral health. I'm glad I'm here.
I've never had a cavity. Huh. Have you?
Seriously?
No, never. Not a big candy guy.
No, I think that's almost like a genetic thing. You just got really good genes.
It might be. I'm not a big candy guy though either. Have you had cavities?
My thing is I drink so many of those sports drinks, and I think those are terrible for your teeth.
Oh, yeah.
They tell you all that citric acid. That's what I'm blaming it on. If I would have had this prevention system back then, I wouldn't have had those cavities. Let me tell you.
Got to use Colgate mouthwash, the dental floss, and everything else.
That's
Gordon,
right.
appreciate
That's
you
right.
joining me today.
Thanks, Kevin.